Hello, my name is Sophie and welcome to another Vlogmas video. So when I was planning Vlogmas, I kind of got carried away and I planned videos all the way up to the 31st of December. So I'm still here, I'm still doing this. And yes, I am pre-filming, so I'm still wearing Christmas jumpers. So one of the ideas I came up with that I wanted to film in this interim between Christmas and New Year is that I wanted to start doing like a check-in video. I've called it annual questions because I've made a list of questions that I want to answer, and then next year I'd like to look back on this video and answer them again and just kind of see where I am in a year's time. I really like kind of diarising things like this and checking in on myself. I love goal setting and like progress checking, so I suppose this is kind of a way of doing that, but I'm trying to make it less goals focused because I've done my time coming up with outlandish goals and be like, this time next year I'm going to be in space, and obviously that doesn't come to fruition. So I'm trying to make it a more casual kind of check-in rather than an accountability thing. But I've written a bunch of questions. Maybe I'll add to this as the year goes on. Maybe I'll add to this next year, but this is what I'm deeming important to myself right now. And we'll see whether that's still important to me in a year. Let's get into my 2023 annual questions. So first up, I thought we'd go with the basics. So my age, I'm 27. Where I live, obviously I'm not going to get too specific because I don't want people to come find my house, but I live in a town in North Oxfordshire. At the moment, we're in a rented property. We absolutely love this house, but we're hoping to get on the property ladder at some point. It's not realistically going to be in the next year because financially that's not an option for us right now, but we're in a rented house in North Oxfordshire. That question's mostly kind of like for record's sake rather than like monitoring. I don't know what else to say, but yeah, please don't find my house. And then the last question I put in the basics section is what I do for work. At the moment that's slightly complex because around the end of September last year I was rather brutally fired from my job, and that left me with quite severe trauma. I have been diagnosed with PTSD, which is super fun, and getting over that is really hard. I'm in a very lucky a great position where I'm working with a business who I've worked with on and off since I was a teenager, and they're really flexible. I'm essentially working freelance, so I can work when I want and as and when I want, but working is something I'm finding really difficult at the moment. So I knew I needed to put this question in, but it's not something I particularly want to talk about. So I'm currently working as like a remote office admin assistant, and next year I'm going to figure out what I want from my career and do that. Literally live just added a question. Autism, how's that doing? What year was it? It must have been 2020 or 2021 that I started to realise that all of the anxiety I'd been feeling and everything I was struggling with might actually be autism rather than anxiety. I think it's anxiety as well. I do have anxiety, but that's not the point. So I started the process of trying to get diagnosed literally that far back ago, and at this point in 2023 I am 2.5 years on the waiting list for a referral to start the diagnostic process. If I come back next year and I'm still on that waiting list, I am going to flip out. I'm gonna flip. But yeah, that's a check-in on that perspective. Because the other thing is, this might be a little bit too meta, but I'm trying to be braver about talking about my autism because it's the difference between using person first language and diagnosis first language, like saying autistic person rather than person with autism, because I will never be I keep saying probably autistic because there's that part of my brain that's like, maybe you're just being a whiny baby. Realistically, I will never be a person without autism, so I want to be able to speak naturally about it without it being like a PSA awareness thing, like, no, this is just part of my life. It always is going to be, so I might as well acknowledge it and talk about it normally because it is normal. Okay, I'm not good at wording, but that's as far as we're going to get with that one. Okay, cool. Obviously I have to include a bookish section and questions on that. Whether I'll be as into books and reading in further years, who knows, but it's absolutely my special interest at the moment, so I'm leaning into it. So the first question, what is your unread physical TBR at? So, when I filmed the video where I talked about every single book I bought in 2023, I realised that there was a whole stack of books that I'd forgotten to put on my list, and I still haven't added them to my spreadsheet. At the moment, I think I'm on 371, but I know that there is a stack of books that I still need to add. So let's say I'm in the realm of 390, just to be sure, because there's a whole Bridgerton set that I forgot to add, and there's 8 books in that set, plus the stack that I went through in that video. Dangerously close to 400, and that's where I'm going to put the limiter. We're not going further than that, I've decided. What's the most surprising book you read this year? I wanted to include this because I think it's so easy to talk about the best book you've read this year, the worst book you've read this year, but actually I think the most surprising book I read was Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. And I mean surprising in that I really didn't think I would enjoy it as much as I did, but I rated it 5 stars. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. I absolutely understand the hype on it now. I'm still too scared to watch the film because I love the book so much and I don't think the film's going to be as good. But it's the kind of book, I think I've said this potentially in this vlogmas, definitely on TikTok. It's the kind of book that I don't think I would have picked up of my own accord. If I was browsing through Waterstones and I read the blurb of that book, I'd be like, okay, that sounds alright, but I'm not going to spend my money on it. Which is why I love the Wedding Library so much, because by having a collection of my favourite people's favourite books, it's a bunch of books that I never would have picked up of my own accord, and a lot of books I never would have heard of. And obviously I'd heard of Ready Player One, but I really don't think I would have read it if it weren't for the Wedding Library, and I really enjoyed it. It's definitely in my top 10 books of 2023, and I really didn't expect to love it as much as I did. So that is definitely, without a doubt, the most surprising book I've read this year. The next question I've written is, what is your most anticipated release for next year? Books that I would consider my most anticipated releases are ones that are ones that I care enough about to pre-order, and I made a video about my most anticipated releases for next year earlier in Vlogmas. But out of the 4 that I have pre-ordered next year, the one that I actually think I'm most excited about is a non-fiction one, which is really surprising, but it harks back to the autism chat. It's called But Everyone Feels This Way, with the tagline How an Autism Diagnosis Saved My Life by Paige Leal, who she's a Canadian TikToker. Well, she probably wouldn't call herself that. She's a Canadian content creator who I found on TikTok because of her talking about autism. I think her whole kind of thing on the internet at the time when I found her, which was a good couple of years ago now, was that people would tell her she doesn't look like she has autism, and she wanted to kind of break that stereotype on what autism looks like, because autism doesn't have a look. I love the way she talks about autism so authentically, and I'm really intrigued to see how her voice in talking about autism online translates to the written word. And also just reading about autism, I think I've become a lot more aware. It's not very well worded, but I'm much more aware of autism in the media than I was in previous years. I really enjoy reading about it because it's something I can identify with, and people like reading about what they can identify with. And then the last question, which I've definitely will be more interesting to look at in future years, but we all already know the answer this year. Have you bought more than you read this year? Yes, I absolutely have. I bought nearly twice as many books as I have read this year, which is really bad because I've had my best reading year of all time. I've read nearly 80 books. I've read 78 books as I film this, and I'm hoping to squeeze a couple more in before the end of the year, and I've bought nearly double that. So that's really bad, and we're learning from that mistake. And we're really going to try and implement the book buying ban next year. Or alternatively to a book buying ban, I think I'm going to implement like a book buying reward system. So when I read 10 books or whatever, I'm allowed to buy 1 new book. I think having that system in place will scratch the itch I have for new books and stop me from spontaneously buying books. The next section, I've just called it hobby check-in, because I don't think I'm the kind of neurodivergent person who picks up a new hobby every few weeks or few months or whatever. I'm pretty consistent with my hobbies, but I think I have enough of them that I can't quite dedicate enough time to any of them. So the first one, I've just put still dancing, because dancing has been another one of my special interests since I was a child. I was the kid that did dance classes from age 3 up to 18 when I left for university. I was on a dance team for 2 years at university, and then I've come back to dancing as an adult. I've been at my dance school now for 2 years. I've been doing adult ballet classes, and yes, I am still dancing. Very much still dancing. Very much looking to do more dancing, because apparently one night a week just isn't enough for me. It's a form of exercise that I actually enjoy, but unfortunately it's expensive, so it's finding a balance between those two things. But next one I've got is still crafting. I have so many craft supplies in my house, it's actually ridiculous, and I've actually been very good about not buying new craft supplies this year, because we bought a lot in preparation for crafting things for the wedding, which was over a year ago now, and I've not really bought anything new or significant since then. My biggest craft at the moment is definitely cross stitching. I ended up buying loads of little Christmas kits in the Christmas leading up to Christmas 22, and this year I think I counted I had 14 at the beginning of 2023, and at this point I've done all but 2 of them. So my mission this year was to get through some of those Christmas cross-stitch kits, and I've done most of that. Yeah, I'm really enjoying it. I find it really creatively freeing, and I really enjoy having a hobby that is not on a screen, because so many of my hobbies do involve looking at a screen. And not even just hobbies, but ways I spend my downtime, you know, scrolling on social media, watching TV, watching YouTube, all of those kinds of things obviously are all screen-based hobbies. So having something that is just like making something with my hands is really nice, but also it's a nice thing I can do whilst watching YouTube and whilst watching TV. Next year I'm hoping to maybe start some sewing projects. I'd love to learn to crochet, but I just can't wrap my head around it, so maybe I might try getting back into knitting. I want to use my Cricut more. Next we've got still writing. Creative writing is a huge thing for me. I love it so much. I would love to be a published author one day. Haven't got the right manuscript yet. Haven't done much creative writing in December because I've just come off the back of finishing NaNoWriMo in November, where I wrote 50,000 words in 1 month, and that was a lot. So I wouldn't say I'm burnt out, but I'm taking an appropriate amount of space from creative writing right this second. One of my goals for 2024 is to write, I think, 2,000 words a week, because I'm aiming for consistency at the moment. I had a goal this year to write 1,000 words a week, and I've done that plus NaNoWriMo. My writing document is currently on like 120 odd thousand words, but unfortunately it's not all of one novel. It's about 30 different ideas. So the focus for writing in the next year is to take all of those and pick one and just actually work on one. That would be good. And the last one that I just added whilst filming this video is still pretending you can play the piano. I still have the piano. I'm trying to evaluate the best way for me to use it again more consistently, because I'm finding teaching myself to be quite difficult, but I feel like there's not many 27-year-olds that are looking for piano teachers who aren't professional musicians. So I'm trying to find where that line is. I don't know if maybe there's an app that I can subscribe to that might kind of help me kind of progress at a more appropriate level, because I'm finding that I'm struggling to find the right pieces of music to help me learn at the moment. So yes and no. I would like to spend more time on the piano. Technically I am still playing the piano, but not really. And then the last section I've just called life, because I don't know how else to describe it. And it was these kinds of questions were what I was thinking of when I came up with this video idea. Top of the list, biggest achievement. This year generally has been pretty rubbish. I'm not going to go into details because a lot of it is quite personal and complicated, but this year's been really tough. I've also accomplished a lot. Have I? Have I really? I've been in therapy for a year, which is maybe not my biggest achievement, but I know it's really good for me, and I feel like I'm really finding my stride with therapy and figuring out how to use it as a resource to help my brain. I get on so well with my therapist. Her name's Rachel. She's brilliant. I adore her. She's been an absolute godsend in making it through this year. I've also officially been married for a year. I don't know if that's really an achievement so much as something that was inevitably going to happen. I've been with Lucas for 8 years now. We've been together since we were 19, and obviously we've done a lot of growing up in that time. And sometimes people say, like, are you sure staying with him is the best idea? Not because of anything he's done or anything that's happened, but just because people change so much in the time between being a teenager and being in their late 20s. and honestly I can wholeheartedly say Lucas is the best part of my entire life. I would like to do life with him forever, which is why we got married. So the first year of being married to him has not been difficult at all. It's one of those things where we've been living together longer than we've been dating. I can do a whole video on how we met and how we got together if anyone's interested in that. I don't think it's very interesting at all, but we met in halls at uni, so we technically lived together before we started dating. We've been through a lot together, so being married to him didn't feel any different to being in a relationship with him. But I honestly think the biggest achievement of this year has been finishing NaNoWriMo. I know it sounds somewhat trivial in the concept of life things, but actually committing to writing 50,000 words in a month. I wrote something every single day. Some days it was 100 words, some days it was 4,000 words. Average that out to make 50,000 words in 30 days. But the fact that I actually committed to a project and stuck with it and did it, that in a year where committing to anything has been really, really difficult, it's been a roller coaster. And the fact that I actually did that, I really didn't expect to feel as proud of myself as I did, and a real achievement. It really meant a lot to me to actually be able to fulfill that. Whilst I would love to say something more profound in this life section about what my biggest achievement was, writing 50,000 words in 30 days in a year where my mental health would generally not have wanted me to do that. I really had to fight with myself to get that done, and I did it. The next question in my life category, I've put best memory with Lucas. Hands down, that has to be our honeymoon. It's the first time we've been on a plane together. The only other international trip we've ever done is we went to Paris in 2019 and we took the Eurostar, so we got the train, so it was less stressful than being in an airport. I have quite a lot of anxiety about airplanes and flying. It was so lovely just to spend 2 weeks in the sun. We went on a couple of excursions, we went on a couple of trips into, we went to Kos in Greece, and we went on a couple of trips into Kos city, but we spent a lot of time just kind of sat by the pool, reading. We ate a lot of food and it was glorious. It was just so lovely to spend so much time, where we could give each other our undivided attention. The next question I've written, or the next, is it a question? Is it a statement? I've put biggest challenge of the year. In January, there was a couple of things that happened that were actually really difficult. Lucas had an accident on an electric scooter where he was going downhill and he came off the scooter at 15 miles an hour. And that was my first ever trip to A&E. That was quite stressful. Half his eyebrow came off, he needed 7 stitches, he somehow didn't get a concussion, he fractured his elbow, he was out of work for 3 weeks. It was a really difficult time. And then there was something else that happened that I'm not going to talk about because I absolutely don't want to talk about that on the internet. But it was really, really difficult and it had a lasting impact on both of us. And the fact that we got through that together was a real... The fact we'd only been married for like 3 months at the time as well, it was like, someone's testing us. And the one thing I can rely on throughout all of this is him. So January, the whole of January, I'm just going to say, was definitely the most challenging thing that I went through this year. Okay, the next couple of questions are a bit lighter, so I thought, you know, we'd end with something a bit less dark. The next thing I've written is, do you have hair plans? Because if you've been on this channel for a while, you will know that the fact that I've had the same hair for over a year now. I first went ginger in March of 22 and I stuck with it because I absolutely love it, and then I cut it all off in June of 23 and I don't really have any plans for it. I want to grow it out, that's kind of the only plan I've got. I was going through all my old photos from 2023 the other day because I want to print them out and make a photo album, and in the first half of this year I had really long hair, like the longest I've ever had hair, and I really miss it. So I had it cut short when I got it done earlier this month, and that's the last time I'm going to cut it short. So I think my plan is to grow it out long and then either cut it short and donate it again or shave it again. the plan for next year is to grow it. Whether I'll grow it for the entire year, not sure, but my hair grows fast, so maybe this time next year I'll be bald again, who knows. Though I'm definitely almost certainly sticking with the ginger. I just think it's what I'm meant to be. I think on the inside I was always meant to be a ginger. And then the last thing that I could think of in this moment when planning this video is my most important goal for next year. And for that I need to go over to my goals document because I can't even remember what goals I have. I've planned most of my goals for next year, but not all of them. I think realistically the one that is most important to me right now, that isn't technically written down in my goals but is definitely going to be part of my goals, is figuring out the direction I want to take my career. Because ever since my career was completely derailed last year, I feel like I've been floundering and I don't know what my next step is, and I feel very lost in the general space of my life in not having that thing to anchor me down. I think work can be a real anchor, and I think when you don't know what you want to do, sometimes it can feel like your life has absolutely no direction, and that's what it feels like for me. So 2024 is the year where I figure that out. I figure my shit out and I do it, because the one thing that being fired didn't take away from me is my belief in my own abilities. I was fired because my boss was insecure and he was a terrible person, and I'm far enough away from it now that I'm not afraid of saying that on the internet. But I know for a fact that I'm good at what I do. I'm a good employee to have, and if I can find the right workplace who has the right neurodiversity inclusion and is prepared to take my, not take my autism, but to take the autistic parts that make me me, that make me a good employee, and compensate for them when I'm struggling to be a good employee, then I can have a really good work life. And my old boss wasn't prepared to do that. I definitely don't have a lack of belief in myself, for want of a better word, but I need to find my direction and I need to find something to focus on. And that is, although it's not in writing yet, I think that is my biggest goal for next year. That or go on another international holiday, but I need the job to make the money to go on the international holiday. So those are my annual questions. I think this could be a really nice idea to just come back to once a year, check in on myself, see how much has changed, see how much hasn't changed, mark progress, celebrate another year, all of those things. I think you can get journals that do the same thing, but having it in video format seems like a nice idea too, because if I've learned nothing else from making this vlogmas series, is that a lot can change in 10 years, and looking back at the videos I made 10 years ago, I'm a very different person, and it's nice to look back on to see that change. Those are my annual questions. I'm already excited about making this video again next year. This is the kind of thing that I really enjoy making, so I hope it's been enjoyable to watch as well. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you've had a great day. I hope you've had a lovely Christmas, and I'll see you tomorrow for another vlogmas video, because we're still going, baby. Bye!